Coming live from the studio, this is All Sports with Gerardo. Thank you for watching another episode of All Sports. This is your host, Gerardo. On the show today, I am going to talk about my experience at Comera Park in Detroit. To start off, at the middle of every month, I post a video or talk about one stadium I went to. So stay tuned for future videos from stadiums across the US. For the month of March, I'm going to post a video where I talk about Comera Park and my experience there. For the next 30 months, I will go in order and tell you about every stadium I have been to across the US. When I post a video talking about a stadium I've been to, there will be two different versions. It will be a video where I talk about the stadium if I have already been there. But if it's a stadium I haven't been to yet, then I will post a video showing you the stadium. So right now I'm going to give you some background history about Comera Park. It's located in Detroit. It's next to Ford Field, which is the home of the Lions, the NFL football team. They broke ground for Comera Park in October 1997 and it opened in April of 2000. It has a seating capacity of over 41,000 seats. On the left center field concourse, there are statues of all the players whose numbers have been retired by the Tigers. Comera Park is the only ballpark in Major League Baseball to feature a dirt strip between home plate and the pitcher's mound. This strip, sometimes known as the keyhole, was common in early ballparks, but it's very rare in the modern ballparks. The home plate area is in the shape of home plate, and it's not a standard circle in most other ballparks. Comera Park hosted the 2005 All-Star Game. So what I like about Comera Park is the layout of the stadium. One thing that's unique about Comera Park, which is the home of the Tigers, the Major League Baseball team, it's located right next to Ford Field, which is home of the Lions, the NFL football team. There are not too many cities, and Detroit is one of the few cities where the NFL stadium and the Major League Baseball stadium are located right next to each other. There's not that many cities where they have both stadiums located right next to each other. Also, now, and even in the last few years, and even in the past, not too many stadiums shared the same stadium where both an NFL football team and a Major League Baseball team played at the same stadium. So one thing that's unique about Detroit is the NFL football stadium and the Major League Baseball stadium are located right next to each other. What I like about Comera Park is that it has unique features that not many other Major League Baseball parks have. Some features that are unique about Comera Park is the layout of the stadium, especially their concourse out in the outfield behind center field. Also, the layout outside of the stadium and how they have the Tigers at one of the main gates. That's something that's unique about Comera Park. The layout of Comera Park, whether it's the inside or the outside, is a lot different from the former home of the Tigers when the Tigers played at Tiger Stadium. Comera Park is a modernized ballpark, and it's the new park that the Tigers play in. But something that's always going to be unique about Comera Park is the layout of the stadium, regardless if it's the inside or the outside of Comera Park. Camara Park is one of the few ballparks that has unique features about it, especially with the dirt strip that goes from the pitcher's mound to home plate. Also, home plate, where the batter's bat is shaped like home plate. It's not a circle like it is in other ballparks. Also, the layout of the stadium out in center field is very unique, especially on the concourse. The outside of the stadium, especially at one of the main gates into Camara Park, what makes it unique is the tigers that they have that greet you when you enter Camara Park, especially at this particular gate. So there's a lot of unique things about Camara Park, regardless if it's inside the ballpark or outside the ballpark. But the one thing that's going to be unique, that makes Camara Park stand out, is some of the designs and features that they have on their field. Also, one of my favorite things about Camara Park is those tigers that they have, especially outside the ballpark at one of their main gates. Those tigers are very unique, and it makes it unique to the stadium, since Detroit's Major League Baseball team is named the Tigers. And these tigers are at this particular gate when you enter this gate, and they're there to greet you. And these tigers have a very nice design to them, and they actually look like real tigers. So that was one of the things that stood out to me when I went to Camara Park. Also, another thing that was unique about Camara Park was their center field concourse, with all their statues and plaques that honor all of their great players from the past. The Tigers are one of the original teams in Major League Baseball, and there's no doubt that the Tigers have a lot of history, especially in the past when they played at Tiger Stadium, which was their former stadium. And the Tigers definitely have a lot of history, since they've had a lot of great players play on their team in the past. So that was also another unique thing about Camara Park, and how they have honored all their great players from the past. So right now I'm going to tell you about my experience at Camara Park. I went to Camara Park back in July of 2016, and what I liked about Camara Park is their layout of the stadium, especially in the inside and even the outside of the ballpark. Another thing that was unique about Camara Park, especially if you sit in their upper deck behind home plate or from the third base side, you get a really nice view of the Tigers game while it's playing. But if you look out in the distance, especially out in right field, you can see downtown Detroit. What makes Camara Park unique, like a few other ballparks in Major League Baseball, is the view that you get from the ballpark when you look out to the outfield. And Camara Park definitely has one of the nicest views in Major League Baseball, just like a few of the other ballparks. If you're in the upper deck and you're looking out to right field, from the upper deck of Camara Park, you can see downtown Detroit. And from Camara Park, you get a really nice view of downtown Detroit. And if you ever seen pictures taken from Camara Park, especially from the upper deck, and those pictures look out to the outfield, you see really nice pictures of Camara Park with that downtown skyline in the background. And there's no doubt, when you see pictures online of Camara Park, and it has that downtown skyline in the background, those pictures are some of the nicest pictures taken from a major league ballpark. And there's no doubt that Camara Park has one of the nicest views from the inside of the ballpark, especially with that downtown Detroit skyline in the background. It's one of the nicest pictures in Major League Baseball, and it's also one of the nice pictures that you can take of Camara Park. And Camara Park can compete with a few other ballparks with having one of the nicest views from a ballpark in Major League Baseball. So that was one of the unique things and one of the nice things that I liked about Camara Park. There's no doubt that Camara Park is one of the nicest ballparks in Major League Baseball. If you haven't, I highly recommend that you go to Detroit to check out a Tigers game at Camara Park. If you have not been to Camara Park, I highly recommend that you go to Detroit to check out a Tigers game at Camara Park. You will not be disappointed. Camara Park is one of the nicest ballparks in Major League Baseball, and it's also a must-see ballpark. If you get the opportunity to go to Detroit to check out a Tigers game at Camara Park, Detroit is located across the border from Canada. So if you have the opportunity, check out Detroit and cross the border into Canada to check out Windsor, Ontario, Canada, which is the city on the other side of the river across from Detroit. What makes Detroit unique, what makes Camara Park a must-see ballpark, Camara Park is one of the nicest ballparks in Major League Baseball, and it's a must-see ballpark, especially if you're a baseball fan, but especially if you want to see all 30 Major League ballparks. What makes Detroit a city that you want to go to is that Detroit is in Michigan. Also, Detroit is on the border of the US and Canada. So if you have the opportunity, I highly recommend that you go to Detroit, check out a Tigers game at Camara Park. But if you have a passport, I highly recommend that if you have a passport and you have the opportunity to do this, cross the river in between Detroit and Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Because you get to see Detroit, which is on the US side of the border, and if you have a passport, you can cross the river into Canada, and you can go into Canada and check out Windsor, Ontario, Canada. So if you go to Detroit and you have a passport, I highly recommend that you cross the border so you can go into Canada. Because you definitely want to check out Detroit, but you also want to check out Canada. If you're in Detroit, and all you got to do is cross the river to go into Canada. And Canada is that close to Detroit. Tune in at the middle of April to find out which was the next stadium I visited. And I will also tell you about my experience at that stadium. Tune in to the next All Sports with Gerardo show next week. I want to say thank you to everybody that watches every episode of All Sports. Subscribe or like my pages on social media at All Sports with Gerardo. Until next time, this is Gerardo.